complex. So is our mental health. It cannot be understood by diagnosis alone. Our philosophy is treat the person, not the mental illness. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interesting episode of the Humanizing Mental Health Podcast. I'm Trent Nakers.
And I'm Jeremy Alcorn.
Canadian philosopher Herbert Marshall McLuhan famously said that the medium is the message. In those few words, he tried to make us aware that how we communicate can be even more significant than what we are trying to say. Being mindful of how we connect seems to be even more critical today than when those words were published back in 1964. It's not an overstatement to say that smartphones are one of the most common pieces of technology on the planet today. Statista reports that smartphone ownership has steadily risen since 2007 with the introduction of the iPhone to reach approximately 46.5% of the world's population today. In fact, you're likely listening to us on one of these devices. With this technology becoming an ever-present part of our lives in such a short period, it's easy to overlook not only how it continues to shape our lives and the way we communicate, but also when these devices have overtaken them. Today on the podcast, we are going to consider these and other crucial questions. To help us out with our exploration of this timely topic is a young lady that brought it to our attention. On that note, we'd like to welcome to the HMH podcast, Miss Alyssa Milner. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm wondering if you can tell our listening audience a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Alyssa Milner, of course, and I am 18 years old, so I just graduated this year. In the fall, I'm going to take a Bachelor of Science at a university, and outside of school, I like kayaking and rock climbing and art, kind of just a little bit of everything.
Oh, cool. And you sound like a very active person, and I think you also have a very special connection with our very own Jeremy Alcorn, do you not?
Yeah. You know, we've known each other since you were just a little kid, right? You moved from Edmonton, and you would have been, what?
5?
5, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought 5 years old. And we attended church together over the last, whatever that is, 13 years. Wow, it's a long time.
Yeah. It's weird to say that. Like, I'm 18 and I can say 10 years ago. Just reached that little point in my life.
Yeah. In fact, kind of how this came together. I was sitting in church and I was listening to a talk who happened to be you. And you were talking about phones. You were talking about your friends. You were talking about the amount of like anxiety, depression that it seems to be occurring for youth. And you pointed out that one of the variables involved in this is people's phones. And I thought, you know, what that message that you were saying and what you were talking about was so important. In fact, I don't imagine that you're in a place in which you're like expecting or thinking at this point in your life, you know what, I'm going to be on a podcast with a couple of master level social workers discussing some of the foundations of human wellness.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's definitely an interesting experience. It's fun. I'm so happy to be here.
And so I'm very intrigued if you want to kind of pull back to that moment in which you were preparing to share a message with the church congregation, and kind of the key points that seem so critical in that conversation about mental health and phones.
Well, I just have noticed so many. I've noticed so many points in my life where I'll be on my phone and then think to myself, why am I on my phone right now? But then I just can't bring myself to get off it. Mm-hmm. And I think so many people go through that. Like, I talk to my parents and then they also feel the same way. And then I also thought about my friends and how many of them suffer from mental illness and how my mood changes when just depending on how long I'm on my phone that day. Like, depending on if I'm on my phone for long amounts of time, I'm not as motivated to do stuff. And I guess back to the whole friends thing. I've noticed that so many people my age suffer from mental illness, and I thought, why is that? Like, why are there so many more people in my generation than in my parents? And I noticed that, like, the only difference I could really think of is cell phones.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, no, and like, as you hear that, I'm thinking about, like, the average person. Like, when you get up in the morning, what's the first thing that you look at? I mean, for a lot of us, and even for me, it's like, okay, I check my phone. Last thing I look at night is my phone. I'm in a relationship more with my phone face to face than I am with other things, especially now for a lot of us when we're in a pandemic. Like, we're looking at screens more than anything else.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit curious, Alyssa, like, if you were to ballpark it, if you were to think about yourself, your family, your friends, how many hours a day would you say in general you spend on your cell phone?
Well, there's that handy feature on your phone that tells you your daily average weekly, and it kind of gives me a little panic attack every Sunday when that pops up. But
Okay, no.
What do you mean it's up 74%? Something is wrong here.
right.
My phone was doing, I don't know. It was on. I wasn't looking at it.
Whoa, okay, hang on. I think that's what we call professionally rationalization. Am I wrong there, Jer?
No. One of the for sure. One of the interesting things is you say that in that question, Trent, about what is your average. How many people are paying attention to that thing popping up and are actually paying attention to it? So do you know what your average is?
yeah, so recently it has been 4 hours, but like a few months ago I had it about an hour a day. Lately it's been more because I've been at work and texting my boss and doing art and using my phone as art reference and watching yoga videos and doing exercises while I'll be on my phone. So if I watch, if I'm on YouTube for 40 minutes doing exercise, well, I just increased my screen time 40 minutes.
Right, for sure. And it's like, you need to diminish that. Stop doing yoga.
Right?
And I think that brings up a very useful point, because I remember I made this post a while ago on Facebook where it said that screen time is not always indicative of what you're doing on your phone. Sometimes it's the question is that if we're going to use these devices, what way can we make their use meaningful?
Sure. Like for example, yoga.
Yeah, when I think about what a good amount of screen time a day looks like, it really depends on the person, because for me, I use my phone for so many things. I text my boss, I do exercise, as I said before, and that really depends on what I'm doing that day. Sometimes I'm on a FaceTime with a friend, and that also takes longer, and so it really depends on the person.
Sure. In fact, that could be an incredible thing, that FaceTime with a friend is a more connecting experience than texting or than having just an audio call with somebody. And so we can't just use that specific variable, how long I've been on my phone, for sure. Because, historically people used to go, don't disturb dad, he's reading the paper, and it was seen as this important thing of keeping in touch with what is going on in the world. And at this point in time, someone could look at me and go, "What are you doing on your phone? You've been just absorbed." And it's like, actually, I'm reading the news, and this is my paper, as it were. Or someone says, I'm reading scriptures. I'm studying scriptures, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, is that if I had a physical book in front of me, would you be judging me right now?
Yeah. Well, and there again, too, I think that's a really good point, is that because when we talk about technology, I remember reading if you look at all the new pieces of technology that we've had, like whether it be all the way back with books, like with the ancient Greeks, that books were the downfall, and then it was radio, and then it was the horseless carriage or the car, and then it was television. And they've actually done a metric, and it said that it takes about 100 to 200 years for a piece of technology to actually be integrated into our society completely. I mean, if we look at that, we're just up to the automobile now.
Yeah, and in fact, that's part of what makes us scary, right? Because the phone is integrated, and we don't really know what we're doing with it.
Yeah. It's kind of like that quote from Captain Kirk where he said, you know, our weapons grew faster than our wisdom and we nearly destroyed ourselves. So the question is, okay, phones are not weapons. I mean, you know, like, depends, you know, if you hug it across the room.
I got one right here. I can make it a weapon.
Hey, hang on. No, Alyssa did her yoga. Alyssa did her yoga for the day. I went to the gym. I don't need more cardio. Thank you. You know, but yeah, like the question is that how can we up our wisdom to meet our technology?
Sure, and recognize around what it does this look like in terms of how we're using this. So you brought up a really good point. That is to say, you're looking at, hey, there has been a tremendous increase in the amount of mental health concerns that are happening in our society. And one of the variables that have changed in that period of time has been that people are carrying this phone with them everywhere. And that's probably an important variable. Certainly there's probably a range of dynamics that also are going on, but this is one thing that is significant. You say, when that correlates, it's pretty hard to say that it's not part of the cause, right?
Yeah.
And like we correlations happen all the time that don't end up being causes to things. But it's pretty hard in that to say that it isn't relevant. So one of the things that I'm wondering about, and I think just from knowing you a little bit, knowing your family, and I don't want to jump to a conclusion. That's why I'm going to ask the question. But I think that actually your relationship with screens isn't actually the same as your peers.
Like what would you mean by that?
So yeah. What I mean is,
you're asking me.
Yeah. What I mean is that I don't think that that you are on your phone as much as your peers.
Yeah, well, I really try and make an effort to not be on my phone. And, well, what we were talking about earlier is how, you know, back in the day, we like stay away from dad, he's reading the paper. And now you can be on your phone and read the paper and everything. But the difference is that you're on your phone and then you're reading the paper and then a notification pops up. And you're not actually focused at one thing at a time, and it just drives me nuts. Because I want to be focused at one thing at a time, you know, and then...
Where did you get that from, by the way? Yeah. The one thing at a time thing.
Yeah, I was curious about that as well. Like, who really influenced your relationship with technology?
Yeah.
I just thought of it right now, but I'm just that wise.
And like,
no, I've just thought about it a lot, about my relation to my phone and what I can do to stay off of it. And I do a lot of my budgeting online, and I have an app that I'm always on, and I find myself going onto different apps like, oh, I'm tired of this, pull up Instagram. And it's like, why did I just do that? Right now, I need to be focused on budgeting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, because one of the issues that happened in our world is there used to be a process in which they're saying, hey, we need to be the most effective we can with our time. And to be most effective means you need to multitask. And that was seen as like this very important skill set and
That's
now
impossible.
and now that's very pushed away from that significantly. They're going, you want to be well, then do one thing at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I think that you've probably read the same stuff I have, Jared, where they talk about the fact that when you try and multitask, actually your ability to actually react goes down significantly. I mean, that's also one of the reasons why they say you shouldn't text and drive, that actually texting and driving is worse than actually being drunk behind the wheel, because, I mean, when you're drunk, your reaction time is slowed, but because our brain really didn't evolve for that rapid switching, how our brain really works is it puts all energy in one area, and then when you say, okay, stop, wait, I need to go to something else, it's kind of like everybody kind of backs out of that room, and then the crowd goes over there. So when you're going from one thing to the other, you're not able to really put your full energy in.
Yeah, that makes me think of what my teacher said one time when he was making a little spiel about phones and how you need to stay off them and put your phones on silent. He said that he read somewhere on the internet that
he was using a phone.
He was using a phone
to learn how to not use your phone.
Wait, okay. Now all I can think of it is like Inception. It's a dream within a dream within a dream.
Yeah. So what it was well, I don't remember how many seconds it was, but it takes 5 seconds or 15, 30 to get back on focus after, writing an essay, and then your phone buzzes in your pocket, and then boom, that's where your mind goes. You think right to your phone, and it takes a long time for your brain to switch back over to writing that essay. It makes you so much less productive, and I guess that's productivity, but also mental health wise, like I'm not as
So was I right in saying that your relationship with your phone isn't necessarily representing the average?
Yeah.
Can we throw a curveball in here? Sure. No, this is interesting because, of course, phones being one of the biggest movement forward in technology, and as I am aware, your dad is actually a computer engineer.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So technology is actually something that you've grown up with your whole life, that has been woven into your experience.
Yeah. And my parents have seen like the huge importance of technology, or just how it can really help and benefit your life, because that's what my dad does for his job. And with that, they've done a really good job of teaching us as we've grown up of how to manage that technology and teaching us about how we can use our phones for budgeting online.
Yeah. So it's almost like a chef that, he bakes all of these things. He bakes all of these wonderful cookies. He knows everything that goes into it. And he says, you can eat these things.
Just make sure it's in balance.
Yeah. Exactly. And it almost makes me think of, because I've read somewhere too that many of the engineers that work in Silicon Valley actually ban smartphones and other types of technology from their home because they know how addictive it is. And they've put those rules in place because they don't want their children to develop those kind of habits.
Sure. Yeah. So then what have you seen? You say, okay, we go, there's this massive movement, negative movement forward in terms of the number of people experiencing mental illness. And you're really coming from this position of curiosity as part of that process, and you're looking and you're seeing what's going on around you. What did you see? What did you see from your peers?
Well, grade 7, everyone starts getting a phone, and they're just on their phone in the school hallway, and I didn't have a phone then. When I was 12,
what year were you born again?
2003.
Yeah, so then 4 years before the iPhone came out. So it's like, actually, you are like the perfect representation of youth that evolved in that transition to when the smartphones became a big thing.
So I'm seeing parents also struggling at the same struggling with their kids. Like, here's a phone, I have a phone, we're getting the phones at the same time, and then they're teaching their kids, and they don't really know how to manage a phone themselves. So how are they able to teach their kids how to manage that? And I mean, I'm not pointing fingers or anything. I'm 18 years old, but I just thought that was
Sure.
an interesting, interesting thing.
Like you're not saying, "Oh, you bad
Yeah.
parents, you evil people that addicted your children to phones."
Mm-hmm.
Like I get that. Like what you're talking about is just what you've seen.
Yeah, and my parents have brought this up too, just saying that how this wasn't a factor when they were growing up. And so how would they know how to manage it now?
Yeah, and you know, I think that like, even when you say like the parents were getting a phone and, oh, this is a wonderful thing, oh, what, you know, like, oh, here, we'll give it to the kids because it'll entertain them. And I think that that's something that's, when something new comes out, you know, we don't kind of stop and think, okay, oh, wow, this is great, hang on, how is this going to impact our lives, and how are we going to integrate this in such a way and say, okay, what are good limits? You know, it's kind of like saying, when you bring the television into the home, you know, like, okay, when are we going to watch TV? Like, what are reasonable hours? It's human beings are like that. We just kind of jump in and we like something, so we get it until we have too much of a fill of it in some ways.
Yeah. In fact, that's where I was going to. Like, realistically, I don't know, Trent. I'm a bit older than you, but not that far away in terms of cohort. And both of us have a very passionate liking for pop culture and spend a lot of time watching the 1967 Spider-Man, you know, series over and over and over again, along with a variety of other things. And certainly for me, the amount of screen, I don't think really changed very much. It's just that it used to be passive. That is, whatever was on TV was what I was watching, and I would live my life around it. That is, Transformers is on at 4 o'clock, so I'm sorry, I can't play because Transformers is on, and I'm gonna miss it. So goodbye.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And part of that transition being that I don't know if there was necessarily, my parents tried to put good boundaries in, but that didn't work. But part of that being then take that and put it in your pocket. I mean, I wasn't able to carry my tube TV around in my pocket and just watch whatever I wanted when I wanted. And then some of the dynamic that would turn out there, that it'd be like parents really need to get something done or whatever, and they know that, hey, cartoons are on, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get these dishes done, I'm gonna do these other things, my kid's occupied for this moment. Well, then take that to a whole nother level. We're going to a restaurant, I don't want my kid to act out. Here, I'm gonna hand him my iPad or my phone, and not realizing how dangerous that actually is.
And it gets so out of control. What I was saying before is, in grade 7, you know, I didn't have a phone, and then when I did get a tablet, not a phone, all my friends would be on their phones in the hallway, and then I would just have this inclination to be on a device because everyone else is. So I pull out my tablet and realize, well, I can't do anything on here. I don't have data. I'm just scrolling through the pages doing absolutely nothing just because everyone is on a screen. So I feel like I need to be.
Yeah. You know what, and I think that I'm just kind of imagining you, like, you're trying to be, you know, one of the crowd, one of the cohort, but then it's like, you know, it's kind of like having a window into the candy store, but not actually being able to go in. And if you just look at the candy, it kind of loses its appeal because you're not actually tasting it.
Yeah, and I think your parents are probably rather wise and strategic. That is to say, sure, here's this device. When you're in Wi-Fi, then you have the ability to text people. You could even call people from it and so forth. But it also sets some just natural limits.
Yeah. Well, and there again, too, with those natural limits, in what way did those natural limits also kind of set up your relationship to the internet, to screens, and sort of, because it sounds to me like you were really looking around, you were you were kind of more cognizant. You just weren't thrown in to the deep end and kind of like everybody else. You were actually kind of almost sitting on the edge of the pool and kind of seeing how other people were reacting, and only got to dip your toe in from time to time. So that kind of, I'm wondering if that really helped to set up that relationship too
Sure.
as well.
You know, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, like I definitely saw phone addiction before I got a phone. And I think that was a big part of it. As I saw the addiction, and then I thought about how can I manage this, and then I got a phone and it was out of control, and I'm like, what did I just do?
Now, what does out of control look like to
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking
Yeah.
like what does actually addiction look like to you? What does out of control look like?
Like having an urge to pick up your phone when there's no notification or it's on silent. You think, oh, maybe someone texted me, or just looking at your phone to check the time, putting it away, realizing that the time went through your eyes and then out the other, you know, and then you have to look at it again. Oh wait, actually, what was the time? You just checked your phone just to check the phone.
Yeah, and you know it's interesting because actually I remember reading quite a while ago that actually how our smartphones actually work is actually very similar to slot machines, and actually slot machines are based off of the same sort of studies that they did with rodents and with rats. And what they found with them is that you can't actually give them constant feedback all the time, because eventually they'll get accustomed to that dopamine hit. So you do it every once in a while or infrequently.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the most powerful reinforcement is random. Yeah, and so what it means is then we chase because it just could be now. I mean, really, it's no different than someone that's going fishing. If they just continued to not catch fish, they would stop fishing.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, boom, and they're like, oh, you know what? It's gonna be this next cast. I'm gonna get the big one.
And I think that there's a particular connection to social media with that. Like that's all social media is. It is designed to be addictive.
Yeah, to grab a hook,
Yeah.
hook, and keep somebody there with those hooks every time that you would find a spot in which this is not as connecting than the new hook.
Yeah, and on my phone right now, I go on points of deleting social media and then re-downloading, trying it out, seeing if I'm going to be able to manage having social media on my phone at the same time, you know. But like right now, I don't have social media on my phone, and I'm still having those urges to check my phone and go to social media, and then realize, oh wait, I deleted the app.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you ever get the phantom ring, or they talk about like the phantom?
It's like, oh, my pocket vibrated.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, it didn't vibrate.
Yeah, and because and actually that's an actual physical response that our body is having because we've actually trained that, and I even get that myself doing them.
I bet you. Like every once in a while, it's like that hip flexor goes. It's like, my phone. Oh wait, I don't have my phone in my pocket.
Yeah, or when you hear your alarm on someone else's phone go off because they just have the same sound, and then you're like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
For me, I personally don't have that as much as other people because my phone's on silent all the time.
Okay.
And so I don't have that vibration going off all the time with my phone just because it's always on silent for school or my job.
So I think that there's a couple of things that we could look at. In fact, we could kind of look at two cohorts. That is, we could look at individuals who didn't grow up with phones that got exposed to them later on in their life. And we still see some of these same behaviors, right? In which they're really engaged into the phone. And what we see in terms of the effects of that is disconnection. We see them not...
Yeah.
We see somebody text them and they're involved in an activity with people, and all of a sudden they're not there anymore, right? They're on their phone, they're texting, and they might as well not even be in the room. In fact, it's almost worse that they are in the room because it creates this distance while there's proximity.
Well, it's that school holidays that I was talking about before, where everyone's on their phone instead of talking to each other. It's just a really odd environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, granted, I graduated high school back
Yeah.
in 2006, but I'm just imagining what it's like going down those hallways and like everybody's just got their head down and you're kind of like, hey, Joni, hey, Tim. Huh?
You know, I'm talking about school hallways, but you know, I also think of going on public transit. Like, this isn't just for teenagers. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
teenagers have phone addiction, but
Yeah.
just as much as adults
Yeah,
do.
yeah. So we look at those effects. We say, let's look at that cohort that didn't grow up with
Yeah.
phones, and we go, what are some of the things that are happening? Well, those people, they'll talk about the good old days. You know, they'll talk about, I
yes.
grew up in the 1980s and we were running around, we're whatever doing this or doing that, and all of these things that were more kind of connecting, and yet the phone is actually part of what is causing the distance for them. No, that's a bit of a different effect. We could say the because they have a baseline or a period of life that was different. And then we could say the phone actually likely is a big part of causing some of the changes that have happened for them. Then we have a different cohort, and that is we have people that grew up in the phone era. Now, for them, they don't have a developmental history that predates the phone, and we could say actually the phone isn't just causing a problem. The phone actually changed the way they developed.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
And that's more dangerous. It's more like, I'm not saying that adults don't need to settle their phone stuff down. They do. It's just that one of the core things that a human being needs to develop is they need to learn how to deal with feelings of, sorry, the word just jumped out of my head. They need to learn to be vulnerable. And one of the things that would interfere with that is if I automatically have a soothing device. And we got some dogs barking in the background. Isn't that lovely? That's real life, right?
Well, yeah, speaking of communication, yeah, but, there's a dog trying to communicate.
Yeah, the dog's like, something's going on. Who is that dog's owner there? Because come on,
Well,
your dog's trying to communicate with you.
You just can't wait for this to come out.
But that position around learning to be vulnerable. Now, if you have something that you don't need to be vulnerable, that I can soothe myself, I can disengage from whatever it is that is causing me a level of distress by just simply turning this on. This is where there's a vast danger that is happening as parents are just handing a screen to their kid, because they're regulating themselves through this device.
Yeah, and as you say that, another thing too that comes to my mind that I just thought of is, how is this changing when we do communicate with people, especially through text message? Like when people will ghost others, like where you're able to avoid uncomfortable conversations.
Sure.
Through just saying, "Oh, I'm not going to text you," or it's you're really not learning how to communicate and really to be able to fully accept all those non-verbal cues from people and really all the information that comes in, even as we're having an eye-to-eye conversation with a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, this kind of splinters a little bit, right? Like one, just as you talked about, that is, what does communication look like and how that changes in terms of how I learn to do that. And the other part being around how do I developmentally learn and grow, and attachment theory has taught us that healthy human beings learn through their attachments, and it means that we need to be on the same page, or the word that they use is to be attuned. We are attuned. What happens when somebody is texting someone back while they're in the middle of a conversation with you? What happens to the attuned process? And what happens when a child feel some dysregulation? They don't want to listen to their parent, or something is going on and they just want to grab that iPad and get back on Paw Patrol.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Or even worse, like you said, the child is dysregulated, and rather than the parent dealing with it, it's like, oh, here, honey, I'll give you this.
For sure.
This will make you feel better.
Exactly.
Yeah. So rather than let's talk about how you're feeling. Here, just
Or
watch.
let's
Paul.
even just sit in it together and me recognize that we can get through this. It's not going to last forever. I can be with you in this time and help you through that attuned position, which would mean my mirror neurons are connecting with yours.
No,
and it means that you will learn through my regulation how to be regulated.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. Like there's just we're trying I don't know if you and I have kind of, I don't know why this is coming to my mind, but it's almost like that idea of toxic positivity. And just sort of like, rather than dealing with that, we're just going to go and find what makes us happy. Like, let's all be positive. Let's just do, like, let's
avoid anything uncomfortable.
Yeah. Let's go into a reality where we feel comfortable. I mean, people talk about, that we're siloing into opinions, but what are we also siloing against? Emotions.
For sure.
Well, like, you go into that reality and there's no emotion at all. You can go through social media and see everyone in their best life, and, you can get a little bit upset of that, just at the back of your mind. Or you can watch a video that makes you happy, or you can just be on your phone and just set into a reality where you don't have to feel anything. You can just be on a screen and not be with other people that make you feel that emotion.
For sure. And since this culture of how to be a person really is handed through attachment, and then we've got such a powerful device that we are attaching to that becomes our primary attachment. But how's a phone supposed to teach you how to be?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as you say that, they talk about the fact that when we read text messages, that when that happens, that we tend to actually tend to misread a lot of things as more negative than that, because what it is that we're not getting those
subtext.
Well, and not only that, but like the emotions back and forth. So it's almost like a mirror that it then kind of bounces back on us and kind of bleeds into our...
Like, and what I mean by subtext is tone, body language, all of those things that give context to what is being said.
Emojis can only do so much.
Yeah, for sure. Like, whoops, I did not mean to send the poop emoji. Oh, no, I am sorry. I was trying to send smiley face.
Yeah.
Well,
I thought they were crying, not laughing.
And LOL can only do so much,
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things that really kind of, I think, can pull some of this together is an example. I think we talked about this before, Alyssa, when we were saying, hey, let's have a chat about this as we're talking about putting together a podcast. And that is, look at those kids that go into a new situation, and what are they automatically going to do? They go into a new situation, and in order for new connections to happen, people have to make eye contact. People have to then, through that eye contact, they'll start to talk to each other. Except that that's really uncomfortable. I don't want to be vulnerable. What if people don't like me? I feel nervous about meeting some new person. So I'm just going to get on my phone. Now I don't feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
Not only that, though, but I just put a wall up that says, don't talk to me. Well, because you can't make eye contact with them and so forth.
Yeah, well, even standing in line at the grocery store, you're just standing there, maybe looking around a little bit, and then you just can't take enough of it. Then you go on your phone and wait for your turn. And you see that so often.
Yeah. It's almost like we can almost stand like that 5 seconds of boredom.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's nothing colorful in front of us. Okay, what can I look at? There we go.
You don't have to smile at anyone, make any awkward eye contact.
Right?
Yeah.
And then people are going, why don't kids know how to socialize? Oh, because they're just texting all the time. And that's what well, that's true. But it's also because when they feel vulnerable in a situation where they're going to be exposed to new people, then they are doing how they know how to deal with vulnerability. And that is they're putting their phone in front of their face.
Yeah. And no, and as that comes up, I almost think of adults too, like you guys were talking about bus rides. How many random people did you meet, or that I've met just on a bus ride, and that ends up turning into a friendship? How many people? Because people say we're lonely, but that's because we're not having those random interactions
For
anymore.
sure. Yeah, like lately, one of the things that I've got into is disc golf, and one of the things I've purposefully done is on the disc golf course. And the funny thing is, I still have my phone on me because it's recording all of my scores, right? But I put it in my pocket every single time after I've recorded the score. I end up running into somebody there, say in front of me, and I'll always be like, hey, do you mind if we just join up? And there's this new human to human interaction that happens over a shared something that's a shared interest. And the world needs just simple things like that to happen more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You don't need to have a giant event. Sometimes it's just the random things of just, getting together and, like you say, that pure, simple moment.
One thing that has been so beneficial to me is I've gone on a few summer camps that have been 2 weeks long or even just a few days, and we're not allowed to have our phones. And you're thrown into this group of people who you've never met before. And I have grown so much from those experiences because you're forced to talk to people who you've never met before.
Yeah.
And that's just not something that I would throw myself into purposefully just because I've grown up on phones like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm curious, with you, I know that you really control your screen time, but when you have to step away from your phone for those weeks or 2 weeks,
There's a motorcycle. That's what that rumbling was. Man, we got some community happening around us. Dogs barking, people going on a rip on their bike. We're talking about people that are not on their phones.
no, absolutely not. Unless the dog is watching Paw Patrol.
Maybe that's how they got the dog to shut up. Here, take a look at this phone.
Maybe. Yeah. But so when you have to step away from your phone for like that week or 2 weeks, what is that like for you? Like, walk me through just sort of what it's like giving up your phone and what it's like coming back to it.
Well, the first time was the weirdest thing ever. It was 2 weeks. I'm actually not sure if it was the first time, but this was the weirdest time for sure. At the end of the 2 weeks, I got my phone back, and it just felt so weird. I cannot describe how weird it felt. Like the screen looked 3D in a weird way, and I picked it up and it was way too light.
What kind of mushrooms were you having on that camp?
I don't know. I don't know, but it was just like the weirdest thing to be introduced to this technology. But at the beginning of the camp, it wasn't actually that hard for me because I try to not be attached to my phone, and I say I'm not going to go on my phone for the rest of the day. So it wasn't as difficult for me as it was for other people, but I definitely felt like, oh, I'm going to check my back pocket. Oh, right, my phone's not there. It was just weird to not have that on me.
Yeah.
And I definitely had those habits.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the pseudo diagnosis of nophonia?
No, I haven't.
In other words, you're talking about these kind of withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah. No, exactly. And now that like they've come out, I remember watching, I think it was either Dragon's Den or Shark Tank, where a guy had actually come out with a brick of wood that was shaped like a cell phone, painted like a cell phone, for people as a transitional object. And I'm just imagining everybody going out on a camping trip with no phonia and everybody hauling around their transitional objects.
And nice. Another thing that got me started, one thing that started me thinking about this whole phone thing was my parents, they found this little quiz online to see how addicted to your phone you are. And all the questions were general addiction questions.
Yeah.
They're like, do you ever lie about not being on your phone? You know, how often do you use your phone in a day? Do you ever have the feeling of, where's my phone, even though it's not around? Things like that. Just general addiction questions that you would be answering in rehab or something. And it was really interesting to see that correlation between the two.
Yeah, sure. Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Gabor Mate has a certain way of defining addiction and understanding the causes beneath it. And I really do follow that process. That is kind of the reason why I was talking about development. Because the position in which people really have a good, attuned, attached experience in life is the ultimate protective factor. Whether you're talking about addiction, whether you're talking about mental health, whether you're talking about physical ailments like rheumatology and many other conditions, and so it's interesting because nobody has an attachment history that's perfect. It means that every single one of us have a potential vulnerability to something that is going to feel connecting, and we got to make sure that we're connecting to the right things.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I almost wonder, because you mentioned that, and I mean, you mentioned with addiction, I almost think of, because technology isn't going away, and I mean, phones are not like an addiction like alcohol where you can potentially abstain. How are we going to have a balance of, if you have a phone addiction or a technology addiction, how do you live in a world with technology and not just perpetually keep that addiction going?
Yeah, for sure.
It's so hard to balance, and sometimes I'll be going 4 hours without my phone and then think, oh my goodness, what if I just got this really important phone call? Because those things happen. People expect you to have your phone on you, and then they'll call you in an emergency, and then you have to pick up, you have to have your phone on you, and it's just cultural, you have to have your phone on you, and it's so hard to try to go without your phone just because other people expect you to have your phone on you.
And then it's like, you didn't answer me. Why didn't you pick up your phone? And
why are you ghosting me?
Yeah, and you're like,
yeah.
Well, actually, I really wish my phone was plugged into a wall and had a cord on it, because then you wouldn't expect me to just pick up my phone anytime. In fact, it drives me crazy. I'm like, look, my phone is for me to have convenience, not for you to have convenience to get me whenever you want.
True.
Yeah, it's kind of like Lucy, the doctor is in, the doctor is out. The doctor is not on call 24/7.
Right, for sure. And psychiatric help is 5 cents.
I think it's so important to be talking about, what started this all, because there is such a great emphasis right now on what can we do to help people who are struggling with mental health. Now that people are struggling, everyone is struggling, what can we do? But yes. I've just been thinking of, wait, why are we thinking about what we do now? Can't we think of something prevention-wise?
Yes, exactly.
What's the prevention to all of this?
For sure. And I think that's what our conversation really is about. You talk about that position of how do people create balance, and it's a very important question because we got a lot of people in that situation. In fact, I think this is a spot where maybe we can make a plug for some resources, right?
Yeah.
In fact, why don't you go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back to your point about prevention.
All right, folks. Well, I guess we're doing a bit of a plug. This is not a commercial, but in prepper, as you hear me rifling through my papers, that's how much research we do for this. There is a wonderful website called the Center for Humane Technology. It has a lot of tips, tricks, and a lot of well-researched papers about how technology can impact people across the lifespan. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to their website, which is www.humanetech.com to check that out. And yeah, I've checked it out. The one thing that I actually found the most interesting on there was they say that you are not supposed to introduce technology to kids until they're approximately 5 years of age or older. So, you ask yourself, can you actually hold off on all technology until your child reaches 5?
Yeah. And I think this kind of stuff is really important. Now, why is it they're saying that? Why they're saying that is because they understand it's going to interfere with their development. Now, that comes back to what you were talking about before around here we are with such an emphasis on depression or anxiety. Now, I'm not saying those things aren't important. They are. In fact, that's what this whole podcast is about, about humanizing this, which means that we're taking away this idea that it's a biological truth. Actually, it's a developmental process that happens. People develop into wellness, and when that is interfered with, then they experience something other than that. And so I think part of the dialogue or conversation here is really for people to start to understand, especially those that don't see it as a problem. People are not going to be motivated to do something different unless first they understand that there's a problem, and they have a position of just having this curiosity about this conversation. How does it apply to me? And they go, oh yeah, I checked that box. I checked. Maybe actually this is interfering with my life. If I think about my wellness, I think about my mood and so forth. Maybe there are ways that I could be improving as I start to take a look at this. Maybe I need to really better understand how I am working with my 3 or 4 year old or my 10 or 12-year-old in terms of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and right when you say that, I almost think of as adults, you have to think to yourself, that if you're working with your 3 and your 4-year-old, you have to think to yourself, okay, that's how they're reacting to technology. How is my embodied child reacting there? And kind of step back and go, yeah, if my 5-year-old is acting like that, what is the 5-year-old inside of me doing that has had all of these years and various other things going on? What is he or she saying? Do they really want to watch another video, or do they want to have that connection with the attachment figure inside of us?
For sure. And then we can say to ourselves, even in that position, if I'm spending so much time attaching to my phone, that means that there's something missing. And I need to focus on that. I need to focus on the way in which I am attaching to myself, whether that's yoga on your phone.
On my phone, of course. Everything's
of course,
on my phone.
Of course. I'm just joking. Whether that's, ways in which I'm connecting to my community, with people.
Yeah, or even if you said just kind of being able to connect with myself and sort of sit in silence with thoughts. Yeah. Cool.
Well, I really kind of feel like we've kind of pulled a bunch of stuff together. I'm wondering if there's any things that maybe in conversation have really stood out, or that are the leftover thoughts as we come close to the end.
Well, I'll throw that one over to you, Alyssa.
Any wrap-up thoughts?
Yeah, any wrap-up thoughts?
I think that there's such a huge misconception about who has phone addiction. As a teenager, well, I guess not legally anymore, but I still feel like a teenager because I'm only 18. But there's all these fingers being pointed at teenagers for phone addiction. But I think that more people need to really take those surveys as I've done, just trying to figure out how addicted to your phone really are you, because I don't know anyone who has a phone and doesn't have some level of addiction to it. Yeah. And I would love to see a phone made that is very limited and what it has. Like phones, they just keep getting more and more and more stuff on it. And you know, all this amazing technology. It's amazing. But I would love to see a phone made that doesn't have all of that. And that's not just a little flip phone that works half the time. You know, I feel
that's a
an
really good
interesting
point.
thing.
Yeah, and they do make what they call dumb phones. That are like that. Actually, they're actually quite expensive. If you just want, in some cases they're more expensive.
So interesting.
Yeah, because they're designed for people to not to actually detox from their cell phone.
That's so curious. I mean, it just reminds me, when I bought a vehicle, a truck, and they're talking about all this stuff, I was like, wow, really? It comes with a blender? A blender? No, it didn't really come with a blender. But it's like, like that kind of level. And it's like, wow, all these things. And then I start driving it, and then I go, I don't need all these things.
Yeah.
Well, like...
Yeah.
Well, I actually don't want all of these things. I just want life needs to start to become simple again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've tried to do that with phones. They've made it so that you can block websites. Like I've blocked Instagram, like the website on my phone, so that I don't delete the app and then go onto the website. It's blocked. And there's all those screen time limits that you can set on your phones, and I've set those too. But man, I get that little reminder of you've ran out of your screen time, and then I type in my password and move on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and you know, I think that's so interesting. The fact that they create the phones, but yet we're the ones that kind of have to go and then put in the limits. The creators of the phone kind of never went out and went, oh, hang on, we're creating this. Here's the recommended guidelines, your daily dose. Kind of like the doctor.
Yeah, I think it's actually a great thing that we can customize it because everyone has a different life. Everyone has different priorities. But at the same time, for me, it is so hard to just say no to all of that. Because it can have social media, it can have all of these things, but maybe it's not the best thing for me to have all those things, and I try to go without them, and I still have the option, and so of course I'm going to go to it.
So one of the last thoughts I was thinking about is thinking about my own process, and I go, I have a son that's 16, and I think he's better at this than me. You know, there's times in which he just goes and he watches YouTube videos for a long time. But when we're out somewhere and we're doing something, or we're eating, or we're, I don't see his phone. And he's not reaching for that to, send a snap to somebody that just snapped him or something. He's actually
Snapchat's the worst.
engaged with the people that he's with. And so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. He's learned those healthy habits.
Mm-hmm. So why don't we pull things together today in the podcast? We've been discussing phone addiction. I want to thank our guest Alyssa Milner. To our listeners, thank you for joining us, and please join us again for another stimulating conversation. This is Jeremy Alcorn.
I'm Trenton Akers. See you next time.
We'll see you next time. This podcast is intended as general information. We are glad that you joined us today. We hope this message has been as meaningful to you as it has been to us. If you're looking for help, you can find us on Facebook at Humanizing Mental Health or at humanizingmentalhealth.ca. Humanizing Mental Health is a plugged-in media production.